now we start with big news that Labour has ordered a ban on new drilling in the North Sea in its drive, of course, for net zero. Now, the decision has been made by the new Energy Secretary, that man, Ed Miliband. He's ruled that confirmation of a new round of drilling that was due to happen within the next few weeks will now not go ahead with immediate effect. This has taken a lot of people by surprise. I'm joined in the studio by our political correspondent, Olivia Utley. Olivia, it didn't take him long, did it? A lot of people, of course, said Ed Miliband, known for his net zero zealotry, he was the guy responsible for green taxes on every single bill in Britain. But even this decision seems to have taken a lot of people by surprise. Tell us all about it.
Well, it was in the manifesto that the Labour Party was going to stop new licences for drilling in the North Sea. And it was also technically in the manifesto, buried pretty deep in the manifesto on page 52, that the Labour Party would actually withdraw licences which were in the process of being granted by the Conservative government. But of course, no one knew when the election was going to be at this stage. And what's happened is these bids for new licences for North Sea oil drilling have got really, really far along. In fact, it was thought that in the next couple of weeks they would be approved by regulators. So I don't think anyone in the industry was really expecting the Labour government to pull the plug on it that quickly. In fact, normally at this stage, it's quite a sort of apolitical process. It's just sort of dotting the I's, crossing the T's, signing it all off. But Miliband has very unexpectedly pulled Labour out of this. And the problem is that for lots and lots of these companies who are bidding for new oil and gas licences, they've already spent millions of pounds on pushing together their bids. And it looks likely some of them are threatening to sue the government, to try and take the government to court over this. And of course, taking the government to court would be pennies compared to what they've already spent on these bids. So it could well be worth it for these companies. I mean, that is a sort of headache that the new government does not need at the moment. But for now, Ed Miliband is sounding pretty bolshy. When asked about it, he sounded terse, he sounded pretty brusque. He just said, well, you know, this is in the manifesto and this is what's going to happen.
And yet, Olivia, some of the numbers deserve to be scrutinised. For example, the Exchequer takes over £10.5 billion in tax from North Sea oil last year, and we still import the thick end of £50 billion worth of crude oil and gas from overseas, because 70% of the UK's energy, this is industry, not just plugging in at the wall at home, comes still from fossil fuels. A lot of people therefore saying, is this a bit short-sighted?
Well, I mean, that is the argument, that obviously the point of stopping drilling for gas and oil in the North Sea is that Britain would transition more quickly over to renewable energy. But during the election campaign, plenty of experts in the energy industry pointed out that actually what's far more likely to happen, given that Britain really is still very reliant on fossil fuels, is that energy just gets imported instead. And of course, importing energy is quite high energy usage in itself. It's also expensive, and also it makes Britain reliant on other countries. I mean, you know, those in favour of the Labour policy, and there are plenty of them, would say that the only way to get that sort of green industrial revolution that they're talking about going is by just pulling the plug completely on fossil fuels at this stage. And they would argue that the jobs which will be lost, because there will be jobs lost when these licences dry up altogether, will be replaced possibly many times over in the new green industrial revolution. But those on the other side would say, well, until that revolution is sort of up and running, it's a bit of a cat and mouse situation. Which do you do first? Pull the plug and hope the green revolution takes off, or see what happens with the green revolution before pulling the plug?
Olivia Utley, excellent as ever. Thank you very much. Let's have a debate about this now. Is it a net zero nightmare, or is it a green dream? And I'm joined now by the former MP for Aberdeen South, Ross Thompson, and the former Labour Minister, Dennis McShane. Ross, let's start with you. This used to be your constituency in Aberdeen, of course. North Sea Oil Central. Tell us how important North Sea oil is to the British economy and the impact you believe it might have in places like Aberdeen.
The impact is going to be huge, not just across Aberdeen in the northeast of Scotland, but right across the United Kingdom, where the oil and gas industry supports over 200,000 jobs. Its footprint is huge. And that's not just those who work directly within the industry, but think about all the supply side jobs that are supported by it. And then all those sort of local economies where the oil and gas industry supports retail and hospitality. So it's not just about oil and gas itself, but the wider impact it's going to have. And it's extraordinary that, Red Ed in his first few days in government has proven beyond doubt that the Labour Party is just the parliamentary wing of Just Stop Oil and will put dogma and ideology ahead of what is in the interests of hardworking individuals and their families, not just in terms of their employment and job opportunities, but being able to pay their bills, heat their home, and keep it lit. And also the UK's energy security, potentially now making us more reliant on despots abroad than being able to meet our less carbon intensive energy made here domestically. It's really disappointing, Martin, and the people of Aberdeen are reeling and are desperately worried about their jobs and their future right now.
Dennis McShane, over to you.
Well, I hope I have many good friends in Aberdeen, which produces one of the best papers in England, the P&J, as well as the Beano. Really actually think whether they're going to believe this story, because it's in the Daily Telegraph, Martin. During the day, surfaced, it has been comprehensively denied. If you read City AM or any of the energy bulletins, that you can read online, and I phoned up friends and checked. I'm not an expert, but I thought I should do that. They all said none of this makes sense. Labour very clearly said it wouldn't be authorising any brand new applications, but all existing ones, and there's some very important ones, as I just said, in line, will be honoured for the reasons he said. We still rely on oil and gas. We need that for any idea of growth that Rachel Reeves has. And I've never, ever in my political life, and as a minister for a number of years, seen such a comprehensive denial so fast of a story. So I take all of the points. I'm not having any disagreement with any friend from Scotland, but I really would wait till tomorrow or the day after tomorrow to just actually see if this is a true story.
So you're shooting the messenger and ignoring the message. It's in the manifesto, Dennis. Dennis, it's in the Labour Party manifesto to just stop oil. It's a question of if, not when. And what about the numbers? Let's look. Dennis, please, let's look at the numbers. Last year alone, 10.5 billion quid taken in tax revenue. Where's that money come from? What, a magic money tree that Ed Miliband's going to plan?
Martin, I completely agree with you. And so I assume does Ed, which is why he's talking about in the future. Yes, I want to see windmills. Wait till those go up. See the rows from the windmill NIMBYs about that. I would like to see nuclear, which in every country that's got a growing economy relies more on nuclear than we do. But I'm just saying that for all the points you're making, the Treasury points, the economic points, the job points, all of them utterly valid. I can't do anything more, and I'm certainly not shooting any messenger. I'm not representing the government, but I'm an old-fashioned journalist. I checked everything before coming on the show, and the line is so clear. You don't want to read out the government statement. It's too boring. But I've never ever seen a story so comprehensively knocked down so fast.
Okay, Ross Thompson, there we go. It can't be true because it was in the Daily Telegraph. Irrespective of the fact, it's in the Labour Party manifesto. Ross Thompson, can we get back to just some brass tacks on how dependent Great Britain is on fossil fuels? 70% of our energy requirements. Forget about wind turbines, what we use domestically. You can't run cement plants or brick factories or car plants by plugging into a wind turbine at the mains. And this kind of policy leaves us more and more dependent on expensive importations with its own carbon footprint on top of actually consuming it in Britain.
That's absolutely right, Martin. And this has been long-standing Labour Party policy. They've been clear that not only did they want to end further exploration within the North Sea, that they also then wanted to close the investment allowance, which enables oil and gas companies to do that exploration and to get the investment in. And then they also wanted to increase the windfall tax up to 78%, which is, unfortunately, the windfall tax has already driven a lot of investment out of the North Sea, and we're actually going to see a lot of people investing abroad. And with if these companies cannot now explore to secure a future supply of domestic oil and gas, which is needed, as I say, right now to keep our homes warm, to keep the lights on, to help in terms of dealing with bills, those jobs are going to go elsewhere. We'll become reliant on other people. And, I'm encouraged that, Dennis shares that view and he understands it. My concern is that within the wider party, wider Labour Party right now, we're seeing a concerted effort to shut down oil and gas. And this is something that we did warn about during the general election campaign, that there's an ideological drive to shut down the industry. But Labour haven't looked at the full scale effect of what they're going to do, because it will have an impact on what they want to achieve. They want to see a renewable industry. They want to see green jobs, but you need these oil and gas companies to fund it and invest in it. For example, it is Shell that is investing in the huge offshore Marram wind farm here in the North Sea. We need these businesses to be successful to enable us to get to that energy transition and that future, and to provide the jobs of the future. But taxing them out of the country and stopping them from exploring for new offshore deposits is not going to enable that to happen. It puts it all at risk.
Dennis McShane, isn't that a fair point? If you're an oil company now looking at these numbers, the direction of travel, windfall taxes going up to 85%. Nobody sits around and passively takes an 85% tax rate. Look at what happened in the 1970s when the Labour Party racked up taxes. People just clear off abroad. Why would an oil company come and invest in UK PLC looking at figures like this, Dennis McShane?
As Ross said, Shell is investing massively, but in wind farms right across the world. We are, for good or ill, moving away from oil and gas. You can now buy a Chinese-made electric car for $9,000. Forget even Tusk's Tesla cars, which are beyond the price of any normal person, except the super Tory rich. We're moving now towards electric cars. We're moving now towards other
people
sources.
People aren't buying them, Dennis.
They are 9,000. No, I don't know what $9,000 is in English pounds. 8,000, 7,000 pounds. My God, you put a car like that on the market in Britain, and believe me, it will go down very, very well. So this, whether we like it or not, if Britain wants to be the only country utterly on its knees to fossil fuel extraction, I'm not going to get into global warming, it's another argument, but it's for real, and we can see the temperatures and the climate change impact in the recent 1 or 2 years. It's going to get worse. If we're going to be serious about this, then we have to take some biggish decisions. Now, all I'm saying is, there was a decision. The SNP opposed it. I don't mean to be unkind to Ross, but the SNP didn't do very well in the last election. The Scottish people...
I'm not SNP. I'm delighted they did unwell.
Sorry.
You just misparted someone there, Dennis McShane.
No. He's a sensible guy. He's a very sensible guy. It's a pleasure to be on your show with him, Martin. So you've got actually now voters broadly accepting it.
Okay.
Lots of different...
Okay, Dennis, I'm afraid I'm going to have to just stop Dennis McShane. We've simply ran out of time. Thanks for joining us, both of you. Ross Thompson, the former Conservative MP for Aberdeen South, and, of course, the former Labour Minister, or his SNP, Dennis McShane. Thank you both very much for joining us on the show.